When you play a game like Fortnite, Star Wars Jedi, or Assassin's Creed, you probably imagine one giant studio creating everything. One team, one building, one vision. Maybe hundreds of developers working together under the same roof, building an entire world from scratch. But modern AAA games are not built that way anymore. Today, the worlds you explore in video games are often created by dozens of studios across multiple countries. Some teams specialize in character design, others build environments, cities, forests, and entire planets. Some studios focus only on animation, visual effects, or gameplay systems, and many players never even realize how many teams are involved. Behind the scenes, modern games are built more like large international collaborations than single studio projects, and one of the studios helping make those worlds possible is Kavuru Games, a development partner that works with game companies to transform ideas, concept art, and early prototypes into the worlds players explore. Let's take a look at how modern video games are actually made. AAA games today are massive productions. Some of the biggest titles in the industry involve hundreds or even thousands of developers. Games like Red Dead Redemption 2, The Last of Us, and Cyberpunk 2077 took many years to create. For example, Red Dead Redemption 2 reportedly involved over 1,000 developers across multiple studios. Why so many people? Because modern games are incredibly complex. A single AAA title can contain thousands of character models, millions of individual assets, massive open-world environments, cinematic story sequences, complex animations, detailed user interfaces, and deep gameplay systems. Even something as simple as a single character might require concept artists, 3D modelers, texture artists, rigging specialists, animators, gameplay programmers, and QA testers. Producing all of that inside one studio would be extremely difficult. So over time, the industry evolved. Large publishers like Ubisoft, Sony, and Microsoft began collaborating with external development partners, studios that specialize in very specific parts of game production. Some focus entirely on character modeling, others specialize in environment art. Some studios handle animation pipelines, others create visual effects or provide engineering support. Instead of one giant team building everything, game development now works more like a network of specialized studios. Each team builds a different part of the puzzle, and when everything comes together, players see one seamless world. This is where development partners like Kavuru Games become essential. Kavuru Games is part of this growing ecosystem of development partners. Instead of creating their own standalone titles, studios like Kavuru work alongside other developers, helping bring large game projects to life. Their services cover multiple stages of development. One of their main areas is game art production. This includes creating concept art, designing characters, building environments, modeling props, and producing animations. If you see a detailed character in a game, that character started long before the player ever sees it. First, artists create sketches and explore different visual ideas. They experiment with silhouettes, shapes, colors, and personality. Once the design is approved, 3D artists sculpt the character digitally. Using tools like ZBrush or Blender, they create highly detailed models. Next, texture artists add materials like skin, metal, cloth, or armor. Then the character goes through rigging, where a digital skeleton is added. This allows the character to move, walk, fight, and interact with the world. Finally, animators bring the character to life, but art is only one part of the process. Kavuru also provides engineering services. This can include gameplay programming, game engine development, optimization for performance, and porting games to different platforms. For example, adapting a game to run smoothly on PC, consoles, or mobile devices. So instead of building everything internally, developers can collaborate with experienced teams like Kavuru to speed up production and increase quality. Let's look closer at one of the most fascinating parts of game development: game art creation. Every character, weapon, creature, or building in a video game goes through a long creative pipeline. It usually begins with concept art. Concept artists explore different visual ideas. They experiment with silhouettes, shapes, and colors. They design costumes, armor, and facial expressions. The goal is to create a character that immediately communicates personality. Once a design is approved, the next stage begins. 3D artists build the character model. Using sculpting software like ZBrush, they create extremely detailed digital sculptures. Every wrinkle, scar, or armor plate is carefully crafted. Then comes retopology, where the high-resolution model is optimized so it can work efficiently inside a game engine. Next comes texturing. Artists add materials and surface details. Skin, leather, metal, cloth, and dirt are all carefully painted. Then comes rigging. A digital skeleton is added inside the character model model. This allows the character to move. Finally, animators create motion, walking, running, attacking, jumping. Each animation must feel natural and responsive. All these steps transform a static sculpture into something that feels alive inside a game world. Why do so many studios rely on external partners like Kavuru? Because modern games are enormous. A single open-world game may require thousands of assets, hundreds of characters, massive cities, complex physics systems, cinematic storytelling. Take a game like The Witcher 3. Its world contains huge landscapes, villages, forests, and castles. Each location contains thousands of individual assets, buildings, trees, props, clothing, weapons, creatures. Creating all of this takes an enormous amount of time. If a single studio tried to build everything alone, development could take over a decade. Instead, developers collaborate with specialized teams. One studio may focus on gameplay systems, another builds environments, another creates character animations, another develops visual effects. Together, they build the final game world piece by piece. This collaborative approach allows developers to create games that are larger, richer, and more detailed than ever before. Let's talk about money, because the scale of modern game budgets reveals just how complex production has become. Grand Theft Auto 5 cost an estimated $265 million to develop. Cyberpunk 2077 reportedly cost over $300 million. Red Dead Redemption 2, somewhere between $370 and $540 million. These are not just development costs. They include art production, engineering, QA, motion capture, voice acting, and localization into dozens of languages. But here is what makes those numbers interesting. A significant portion of that budget goes directly to art production. Industry estimates suggest that art can consume anywhere from 40 to 60% of a game's total development budget. Why so much? Because a modern open world game can require over 100,000 individual assets. Rocks, trees, buildings, vehicles, weapons, characters, clothing, furniture. Every single one modeled, textured, and optimized by hand. Red Dead Redemption 2 alone reportedly contains over 500,000 lines of dialogue, over 200 species of animals, each with unique animations and behaviors, over 1,000 actors providing voices and motion capture performances. These numbers explain why studios cannot build everything internally. The math simply does not work. Even with 500 developers working full-time, producing that volume of content inside one studio would be impossible within any reasonable timeline. So publishers distribute the work. Internal teams handle core systems and creative direction. External partners handle specific production layers. And together, they ship games at a scale that would otherwise be unreachable. Not every game development story ends well, and the failures are just as revealing as the successes. Cyberpunk 2077 launched in December 2020 in a broken state. On PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, the game was nearly unplayable. Sony removed it from the PlayStation Store entirely. CD Projekt Red offered full refunds. Their stock price dropped by over 30% in a single day. What went wrong? The game was developed under extreme time pressure. CD Projekt Red was trying to build one of the most ambitious open worlds ever created, while simultaneously developing for multiple platforms, with a team that, despite being large, was still stretched across too many systems at once. Anthem, developed by BioWare, faced similar problems: a 10-year development cycle, a constantly changing vision, and a final product that disappointed millions of players. BioWare later described the project as a studio-defining struggle. These are not isolated stories. Battlefield 2042, Halo Infinite's missing features at launch, the troubled development of Skull and Bones, which reportedly took nearly a decade. What connects all of these? Scope that outgrew the team building it. This is exactly why specialized development partners exist, not to replace internal studios, but to absorb specific workloads, to keep art pipelines moving while engineering teams solve hard technical problems, to allow studios to focus on what they do best without everything else falling behind. The games that launch successfully are almost always the ones where production was distributed intelligently, where the right work went to the right teams. The game industry continues to evolve. New technologies are constantly changing how games are built. Procedural tools can generate massive landscapes. Artificial intelligence is starting to assist with animation and asset creation. And next-generation game engines allow developers to create incredibly detailed worlds. But one thing remains constant: great games require collaboration. Behind every world you explore, there are teams of artists, programmers, designers, and engineers working together. Some of those teams are the studios you already already know, and others what are the hidden creators behind the scenes. Studios like Kavuru Games, helping transform ideas into the worlds players explore.